Begin transmission.
This program is intended for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised.
Well, hello, everybody. How's everybody doing this fine Sunday noon? We're getting started here on a Hangout session. When got everybody in the chat here, got about 8 folks, it looks like, have joined us today. Let's see who all's here. Like Bjorn Jorgensen showed up first. Shambolics, good to see you. I see Jim Largo and I see Gojitron. How's it going, Gojitron? Good to see you there. So if you're ghosting and in my chat or lurking there and you haven't said a word in the chat, please do so I can say hello to you. Real quick, I want to do a little housekeeping and do some shout outs. I do this every time because they need to be told that I appreciate them, and that is my Patreons who support me. Grindhead Jim, thank you, sir. Pope, Will McLaughlin, Jim Largo, our own Rolo at Mattress Maniac Mexico, and Bjorn Jorgensen. Thank you so much for the support. I appreciate it, fellas. And looks like Lax Sivrak is in. Lax says, hello, friends. I'm Mr. Mom today, or I join you fine gentlemen. One day we'll get you on the show with us, Lax. I just know it. And Boba Hicks just came through. Hey, Boba Hicks, what's going on? Good to see you, my friend. And let's bring Largo up here. And
happy Sunday.
Yeah, thanks, man. How's it been going, man? Seems like we just got through doing a stream.
I know.
Right.
Just can't keep a good thing down. It just keeps going.
Anthony was down there in the green room, but it looks like that he had to pop out for a minute. Maybe he had to reboot his phone. Let me send him a quick message there.
All righty. He'll probably pop back in here in a minute.
There he is. Bring him on in. There we go. I got him. Hey, what's going on, Anthony? You doing all right today, sir?
Yeah, I was experiencing a little technical difficulties. I didn't have any sound. We had to reboot the phone. Now it seemed to do the trick.
Yeah, the phones are the same as computers. Hey, Ticket, what's going on, man? Oh, Salacious Rum is in the house. Hey there, Salacious Rum, Monkey Lizard here, having dinner and watching from UK. Thank you for coming in, Salacious. And everybody that has joined me, please give a like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And that really helps the algorithm a lot. Man, it seems like that we just got through live streaming not too long ago, doesn't it?
That's a short nap ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think I got about 4. I think I finally went to bed at 4:30 and slept till about 8. So, yeah, we had a pretty good chat last night. And towards the end of that, off stream, we were talking about a few things that we might want to talk about today. Do you remember any of those, Jones? Or my mind is a Swiss cheese this morning.
I know we were going to dive down the mini comic variant rabbit hole. Was one of the things we were talking about. Just like with the three of us, we get going into left field and all over the place. So
it happens. It happens. I don't know if you guys saw this morning. I've sent him an invitation to come on the show, and I do hope he does show up. But I thought that it would be fun to watch something that Super Awesome Geek Show posted this morning. And let's go ahead and take a look at that because I'm really pleased with this. Take a look.
Hey everyone, John here from Super Awesome Geek Show, and I have a box from Bill at Weird Fantastic Toys. So, let's see. Bill told me he was sending me a Christmas card, but he didn't say he was sending a box. Look at this, Christmas card. See, that's what he told me he was sending. Just this. And then we get a whole box. What are you doing to me, Bill? May all the magic and joy of this special season fill your heart from Bill and Paula at Weird Fantastic Toy Adventures. Thank you, Bill and Paula. I appreciate this so much. I would have been happy with just a card. My friends. Thank you so much for this. I am blown away. What have you done? Bill, what have you done? What is this? He's got a guy wrapped in bubble wrap in here. Bill, what have you done? No, you didn't. I have a suspicion. I think I know what this is. I can see his little feet poking out the bottom. Oh, Bill, what have you done? No. Oh my gosh, does it even have the little... No way. This is like almost brand new. It even has the thing on it, the tag. Bill, what are you doing to me? Dude, this is so awesome. An original vintage Chewbacca with bandolier strap, Kenner, Chewbacca, 1977. Wow, this is like brand new. Bill, what are you doing to me? I love it, Bill. Absolutely love this. Chewbacca and R2-D2 stuffed toys. Washing instructions if you need to wash it. With the little card on it. This is like... Oh my goodness. Bill, I am blown away. I am absolutely 100% blown away. I don't know how to thank you, Paula, Bill and Paula. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for this. I am a Chewbacca fan. I do have a Chewbacca shrine of a whole bunch of Chewbacca items, and this will go in the shrine. This is in absolute perfect condition. It is immaculate, brand new. I am just blown away. I love getting vintage stuff, and to have the tag. Oh, I haven't even seen this tag before. I have not even seen this. I want to... Oh, he's good. This is awesome. Bill, this is awesome. Merry Christmas, my friend. Thank you so much for this. I am speechless. I am blown away. I don't think my Christmas gift to you I'm sending lives up to this level of awesome. Oh. Oh. Thank you, Bill and Paula. I really appreciate it. I love this. It is going to go in a treasured spot in my collection, and I cannot thank you enough. Merry Christmas, my friends. I hope you have a happy new year. And to all a good night. Yes, I will be forever grateful. This will be a treasured item in my collection for all time. Thank you. Merry Christmas. We'll see you on the next one. Stay awesome out there, everyone.
Yeah, and I kind of wish John had came on the show because I put it in his comments there on that when he uploaded that. But the provenance on that is my mother was a doll collector, and she actually purchased that new back in 1978, and it was in her doll collection when she passed away back in 2012. And we had to go through her things. And one of the things that Paula saved was that Chewbacca toy, and we were trying to figure out who to give that to because we wanted it to go to a very good home. And she said, "Well, John is a big Star Wars fan. Why don't we give it to him?" And I said, "All right." So we boxed that thing up and sent it off to John, and it just warms my heart that he was so excited about it. So, John, if you're listening out there, man, it was our pleasure, and I just wanted you to know that it's pristine mint, and it was bought brand new by my mother back in 1978.
That is very cool, Bill.
And thank you. Like I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that. John was absolutely correct. The choice. He is a keeper of the grails. Yeah, it was just a cool thing to get that and let John put that in his collection. It just good
And
good stuff.
that's another thing with vintage collectors. We really appreciate the backstory of a toy. And when you know that something came from somebody's childhood or personal collection, it just makes it more special. So that's even a bonus on top.
And to know that he's actually basically the second owner of that was purchased new. So what's been going on there, Joneser? It looks like you're packing up some stuff to sell.
This is the last of it. I am to the end of the pile. I'm just hoping I got enough bags and boards to finish, but the way it looks, I'm probably going to have just enough bags and boards to not finish. So I'm going to have to do
boy.
always the case. Always the case. It seems like when you're bagging and boarding comics, you always are a few short.
Looks like you have some Perez era Titans there. Is that a whole run, or is that just a smattering of issues?
There's a lot of whole runs of like Justice League International, Suicide Squad, Task Force. A lot of these Solar Man. I think I got the whole run of that. I finally found where the good stuff is, and we started finding things like Venom #1, and found the first issue of Maximum Carnage. Found Spidey 2099. But the one thing that always warms my heart, if you give me a second, what I do this for mostly is if I can find something for me that I'm going to keep, and I like the good old stuff. Let me show 1 second here.
Sure.
He does come up with some neat ones.
Well, while he's doing that, I've got a special Christmas message. It's been posted before on my show, but I thought I would play it today for everyone. It's a Christmas message from the King.
And now, here with a special Christmas message, the immortal Elvis.
There we go. I just wanted to put a little Christmas message out there into today's show while you were busy getting something there for us. What you got for us there, Joneser?
Well, I always like to find something that I want to keep. I found an issue of What If that was real big on when I was a kid. I don't know if you can see that.
Let me pull you up. Let me pull you up big there, Joneser, so you can show that off to the audience here. There we go.
Okay. There's What If the Punisher killed the Daredevil. I remember reading this as a kid, and I loved it. We found some Spidey super stories, which cool. I like these goodness, and a couple more old ones. I think these are reprints from the old Tales of Suspense run. But the one that was really special to me, we got the old Amazing Spider-Man, the first appearance of the Gibbon. Not a great character, but still pretty cool. And the one I was the most excited about, an old John Romita, Dr. Octopus, Spider-Man book. These will definitely be staying with me, which it's kind of hard to run a business and make money when you keep robbing the good stuff out of it. That's kind of what I started for anyway. So, you know, that right there, to me, if you mathematically added the totals to that, probably paid for the entirety of the collection.
Right.
So now I could sell the collection at $1 a piece and make my money back if I so desire to, or I could pop off a couple of those key books I found, plus the few that I kept, and then a break even instantly. You know, that's kind of the game you play. Do you want to quick recoup, or you want to piece it out over time? And really the way to make the money is to piece it out over time.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, looking at that stack there, is that mostly post-crisis stuff, or do you have some Bronze Age pre-crisis stuff in there?
This is mostly, I'd say the entirety of it is late 80s, early to mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
There is some 70s stuff in there, and there is some 60s stuff in there that I found, but not much. There's some old issues of Spider-Woman, and, you know, I mean, you can tell this collection had been picked through and somebody pulled all the goodies out of it, but they missed a few. You know, but I mean, I'd say it's mostly early to mid 90s. There is some mid to late 80s in there too.
Okay. The Ticket's got a question there for you, Jonesers. He wants to know what you think about the Scarlet Spider series.
Okay, I like the newest one. Is that what he's talking about? The latest? Because I haven't read that. But the stuff when he first came out in the 90s, I really liked that. And it didn't start off something I liked, because I'm that cranky old guy that hates change and, oh, don't take Peter Parker out. Who's this clown? But then I realized I have the original appearance of the Spider clone in my collection. And so then I was like, oh, I hope this guy shoots to the moon, because then my comic will go up in value, you know?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
It made me become more of a fan, being I'm invested, you know?
Right. And Ticket, he says, I meant the original back in the 90s. I didn't know that there was.
I loved it. Got all of them. Yeah.
When it first came around, I wasn't a fan like you, but once I read the whole Clone Saga, once it was collected, I had a little more appreciation for it when you can see the whole story together.
Right.
Yeah, the Clone Saga is one of those classic Spider-Man stories, in my opinion.
Well, when I found out what they were trying to do with it, is the thing is, Peter Parker had since become established, a grown up and married, and they wanted to get back to the old Peter Parker stories where he was a single man and he could make mistakes, was still, you know, fresh in the game. So they found a way to do, you know, their own little version of a reset back then. And, you know, but I think the problem they had with it, where it hit me, is I was a fan of the Peter Parker I was a fan of. So then when you reveal him to be a clone or a fake, it's like, what, are you going to tell me all the Spider-Man stories in my childhood where I was rooting for this hero? He wasn't really him. That felt terrible to me, you know? So I'm glad they invalidated the invalidation, if that makes any sense. And they eventually reversed course and put Peter Parker back, and Ben Reilly was the clone.
Right. Well,
you know,
that's one of the things that we always know about evergreen properties like Spider-Man, is no matter what they do to him, eventually it's going to have to reset at some point back to what it was before, a la Death of Superman, a la Batman gets his back broke, all that stuff. I mean, I don't know if I bought into it, because I was a little older than you, Jones, or when the Death of Superman came about. But you know, we were like, I don't know how long they're going to drag this out for, but it's going to reset.
Yeah,
and it did.
that's like this recent thing they've done with Captain America. where they gave him a heel turn and said, "Oh no, he's been a Hydra agent the whole time." It's like, come on, man, you can't do that to Cap.
See, to me, that had the same effect as the Spider Clone thing, because now you just invalidated an entire generation to Captain America stories. To where, are you kidding me? He's been a double agent my whole life. That, it isn't right. And then they did eventually reverse course, and hey, we faked you out when we faked you out.
And I think that's getting a little old. It's a little, it's kind of old meme. They need to quit doing that shit.
Yeah, they pulled that trick one too many times,
I think.
Well, for me, it's like, I like it to, again, you guys, pro wrestling fans, or you ever watched it when you were a kid, or enough about it. Okay. Like, to me, human beings love the replaying of rituals. Now, we've all seen the trope in the wrestling match where the bad guy's got the good guy in the headlock and he's down, and they put his hand up and it's going to fall the first time, and then the second time it's going to go up and it's going to fall. Well, what's going to happen that third time? We all know. He's going to hit, and he's going to wham, and you're going to get the big pep. Every single person that's watching on TV and that paid a ticket in that arena knows that's going to happen, but you want to see it happen.
That's true.
I think it's the same thing with comic books. They keep saying, "Oh, we got to shake it up. We got to shake it up." No, we want to see Clark Kent take the glasses off, open the shirt, and save Lois at the last second on the train track. We do not want to see Lois get splattered by the train. We do not want to see, Clark Kent's not really Clark Kent. He's an alien clone from the planet who gives a crap.
Exactly.
No one wants that. They do it to shake it up because the stories become tired, and cliche, much like our wrestling comeback. But I think you can sell tickets to that wrestling comeback every Friday night, and people are going to come see it because they need to see it.
No, that's just like anytime that there's a feud, we know that eventually the blow off is coming. So no matter how many times the good guy gets defeated coming towards that blow off, when the blow off happens, that's when the good guy wins.
Yep. But like Gojitron's pointing out here in the chat, there are some derivative characters that you have as, the after effects of these kind of things, where you have Thunderstrike, you have Beta Ray Bill, then you've got Scarlet Spider and all the different flavors, Azrael, so I mean, they're interesting characters for a minute, but they never are going to replace the original. But they're still floating out there somewhere. And
well, Marvel did that here not too long ago with Iron Man, Ironheart, Thor, Lady Thor, whatever, the Mighty Thor, whatever the hell they were calling her in that.
Right.
And then, of course, that carried over into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But what's unfortunate about that was the failure of the comic books at the time. They didn't realize what was going to happen, so all those movies got slated and created, and then the comic series failed, and then too late. Now the movies have got to come out and fail too.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because some of those runs were very unpopular with the longtime readers. They just weren't interested.
No.
The Jane Foster Thor thing, it was an interesting storyline, but she's not the main character for the Thor mythos. No,
and it was, and like we were saying before, I mean, it was destined to be reset.
Yeah. And
Lex Sivrak goes off the rails here with something that we might want to think about. Was the Scarlet Pimpernel the very first classic superhero?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And Bjorn Jorgensen adds fuel to the fire, saying a discussion on superheroes before they were called superheroes would be cool.
Well, I would say the Scarlet Pimpernel would definitely be one. I'd say King Arthur. If some people debate if he was real or if Merlin and all that was real or not, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't.
All beat.
Robin Hood.
I got you all beat. I got you all beat. All right, let's go back to high school. We all were forced to read this book, and we didn't realize the implications of it and why we were forced to read it. The very first, in my opinion, superhero is Beowulf,
Oh, yeah.
and it's
That's a
one of
good
the
call.
very first examples existing of a written story that was written down. It wasn't oral. It started out as an oral story told by the Scots, who were like traveling bards who would sing and they would tell stories. And it was finally written down by some monks, of course. And it, it Beowulf basically was a superhero. I mean, you go through that. The things he did were superhuman feats. He was the strongest of all of them, and he had to defeat Grendel. Then he had to defeat Grendel's mother. He had to hold his breath underwater for ungodly amounts of time in order to do that. He had to eventually, at the end of the story, defeat a dragon. So, yeah, I think Beowulf would be the first example of a superhero, and they weren't called superheroes. Um, Even back in the days of the pulp days with Doc Savage and Shadow and all that, they were more of mystery men.
Right. Or vigilante.
Yes, but
You
one
could
of the
probably make an argument for Greek and Roman mythology too, because there were a lot of the demigods and the lesser characters like Odysseus that would fall into that hero category.
yes,
or even some of the tall characters like Paul Bunyan and John Henry, and like some of those,
Johnny Appleseed.
Johnny Appleseed, who was actually a real person.
So folk hero, I guess, would kind of fit there too.
Now, as far as the classic costumed hero with a double identity, I mean, we know that there's the Tales of Zorro, but I don't know when those were actually written. But as far as a comic strip, I want to say the Phantom.
The Phantom, the Shadow, Superman. I mean, those are all pretty early. In
Green Hornet.
Yeah, the Phantom predates, I think, Superman, but he was a newspaper comic strip. I know Frew and several other comic publishers would collect those into volumes and release them as comic books. But first and foremost, I think he was an episodic adventure comic strip, and it is one of the early examples of a costumed superhero, even though he didn't have superpowers.
Right.
And
I'd be kind of
was one-
curious about that, whether it be a chicken or the egg thing, because some of them showed up in the comic strips and some of them showed up on the old timey radio programs like Captain Midnight and some of those. I don't know which one came first. I haven't done any research into that.
I don't know. And Bjorn asked about Dick Tracy. Is Dick Tracy a superhero? No.
I was just going
not
to say him.
necessarily.
I
Not
would
necessarily.
say yes, and I'll say why. Dick Tracy has a rogues gallery that would rival any superhero. Even though he doesn't have the dual identity, he's got the iconic look. They've got the comic strip stories going. But I would, because of the rogues gallery, you've got the flat top and BB eyes and prune face and big boy Caprice and the brow. Like he's got the mole, the rodent, I mean, he's got all the rogues. He's got a rogues gallery that rivals Spider-Man or Batman.
Well, let's go down the Dick Tracy road, because I like Dick Tracy. I've read a lot of his strips. In the beginning, Dick Tracy was a hard-boiled detective, and most famously for the fact that every one of his villains he ended up killing.
Brutally. Most of them died very horribly or very brutally.
Brutal deaths. And then the strip changed, and it became a sci-fi adventure with the introduction of the Moon Maiden and the supercar and the adventures on the moon and all that. And
see, that's about where I checked out.
Yeah, and a lot of people did. A lot of people did. And then here looks like Largo's having a little gremlins there. But anyway, eventually the strip kind of went back to its roots here a few years ago, and I enjoyed that run there that happened I think Largo had to reboot there. Looks like it's just you and I there, Joneser.
Yeah, that happened to me earlier. And quite honestly, when you went to the Elvis or to Super Awesome Geek Shows thing, I couldn't even hear it on my end. It came in quiet as a mouse.
So you couldn't hear the Super Awesome Geek Show stuff?
I could not. I pieced together what was happening after you guys had commented on it when it was over.
Well, I'll ask the chat. I'll ask the chat if you guys heard that when I played that. I hope you did. And somebody just answered me there in chat. Like Sivrak says, Mandrake is before Phantom, but Mandrake is just a magician. No, Mandrake is not just a magician. He's actually does magic. He's one of the. I think it's a hypnotic magic, if I'm not mistaken. But he's more than just a magician. He has the powers of hypnosis. And Lack also says the internet says Phantom is the first costume superhero. Gojitron, who is very much up on things, says that the old pulp magazines predated radio quite a bit. And Lack says Dick Tracy definitely battles super villains. And then the question is asked about 007, our friend James Bond.
I would say he's more of an action hero, but I mean, I guess he fits. I mean, nowadays with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, can you really separate a superhero from an action hero anymore? I mean, it's more or less the same thing nowadays.
Yeah, and then the question is, what defines superhero? I think Bjorn asked that earlier in the chat. Hello there, Gilster37. So what I think defines a superhero is not only the costumes, but also powers. Now, where does that leave Batman? Batman does not have any powers. Well, what did Bruce Wayne say when he was driving the Batmobile in that god-awful movie, Justice League? So what's your superpower?
He was rich.
Yeah,
See, I don't like that. I don't like that. I think Batman's superpower, if I'm going to be honest with you, in my opinion, was his mind. He was in Detective Comics. He was the world's greatest detective. He solved problems with his mind. I mean, yes, the punching, the martial arts, the deception, the technology, all of that was part of it. But ultimately, he defeated the villain by figuring out what made him, what he was trying to do, what his motives were, and unraveling the plan. So to me, it was a master of mind. And I think that falls with if you look at the villains are not filled with superpowered people that like turn into sand or fly into the air or they're all like people who have mental illnesses or mental diseases. Most Batman villains, it's not what they do, it's what's wrong with them. And I think that's part of the fun of Batman is him having that game of mental gymnastics with the Rogues Gallery.
And Gojitron says most of the old heroes did kill their villains with righteous justice. And Ticket tells us that he heard the Elvis thing and he could hear that loud and clear. Did you hear that when it was playing, Joneser?
I did not. I think the problem's on my end because that was what had me reboot in the first place. When the intro to your show started, I couldn't hear it, and I rebooted. Okay. And then when you went to the other thing, I couldn't hear it. So I think the problem's on my end.
All right. Well, I see Largo has returned. Largo, you can bring yourself back anytime you would like because you have the power. And going back to the chat, let's see what there's a lot of comments that have been made since we were talking. Lack says, do you remember the episode with Gruesome played by Boris Karloff?
I do not.
Boris Karloff. Huh.
And Lack said he could hear everything, so it was good. We could hear it, says Lack. Okay. The ticket says, do they need to have superpowers to be a superhero?
I would say no. Say Batman, Punisher, or if you qualify Punisher as a superhero, he might be more of a vigilante. But Green Arrow.
Punisher was originally a villain. Punisher was originally a Spider-Man villain.
Mm-hmm. Right, but I mean, he was also, even as a villain, he was righteous. You know, he believed
the classic anti-hero.
Yeah, He
Right.
believed Spider-Man was the villain and he was the hero, you know? So, I mean, it kind of like Magneto with the X-Men. Later, Magneto thought he was the right one and they were the problem.
Exactly. And World Made of Cardboard, good to see you in there, sir. He says, killing your villains doesn't make for future sales. Well, we figured that out. And I never understood why in the Batman movies they had to kill off all of Batman's villains. In the very first 1989 movie with Michael Keaton, the Joker fell to his death from the cathedral.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
to
that
be
was
fair,
unnecessary.
Batman didn't kill him in that moment. The Joker killed himself. He even said it.
Pretty much.
Sometimes I just kill myself. He got his foot hooked, and then due to the circumstance he had fallen, he could have let go and allowed himself to be captured.
And World Made of Cardboard says that Batman is a perfect combination of James Bond and Sherlock Holmes.
I would
Yep.
agree with that.
And Gojitron says Batman has super discipline most of the time. Well, you have to have super discipline not to kill the Joker. Just right out kill him. I mean, the Batman could kill the Joker anytime he wanted to and be rid of him, but he won't because he wants the Joker to receive justice, not through the justice system, not just become a murderer and kill him. And Batman and Robin was the awful movie first. Yes, Batman and Robin was not a very good movie. It was a terrible movie.
It wasn't.
I hear lyric.
You triggered him on that one.
And like Sivrak says, whatever 007 is, Dick Tracy must also be.
Yeah, and I would say the Batman's got a little dick rub with the gadgets. Like Dick Tracy, when you that two-way wrist radio was like a really cool thing for the time. You know, now everybody's got an Apple Watch, but back
Sure.
you know, that was wild.
And the ticket says the Punisher has many layers, like an onion.
I would
Like
agree
an
with that.
ogre.
And Gojitron brings up a very good point. I really dislike having to turn every popular villain into an anti-hero. Venom is a perfect example of that. So Venom is a bad guy. He's been a bad guy for a long time, but he's so popular now we have to give him his own series. So we have to put a spin on it and make him an anti-hero.
Right. Harley Quinn's another one that follows that trope.
Yes. And Lex Sidrak
I'd have
tells
to
us
say
that-
with Venom. I'm sorry. I'd have to say with Venom, he started off with that whole anti-hero vibe, but I think they pushed it too far. Like I liked him better with the drooling, snarling, "I'm gonna eat your brain," you know, kind of thing. But he did have that sense of righteousness that he felt he was the wronged party and that Spider-Man was the villain. And so he always had those little anti-hero seeds, even from the beginning. But I do think that they did him a disservice by pushing him all the way into the same for Harley Quinn. I think they did her a disservice pushing her all the way into the good guy pile, you know, or as far in as they did. They were better served as villains.
All right. And
The only exception to that, I'd say, is the Suicide Squad, the comic book, especially when, was it Ostrander picked it up and revamped it and put in a lot of the C-lister villains? Because they weren't heroes. They weren't trying to be heroes. They were forced to do, you know, heroic things.
And Lack went ahead and told us what he was talking about there. Boris Karloff was in Dick Tracy as the bad guy, gruesome. Okay. And Bjorn Jorgensen wants to know, I don't know why Gotham City doesn't just execute its criminals. Well, first of all, we don't know where Gotham City is located, but in my mind, it's in New Jersey because New Jersey is the armpit of the world. So why not have one of the worst cities in America be located right there in New Jersey? And I don't know if they have the death penalty in New Jersey, but I can tell you this because of a case that happened here recently in in my lifetime in Mississippi. The death penalty cases are hard to prosecute. It's hard to get a jury to send someone to their death, even, no matter how horrible what they've done is. And in the Joker's case, the Joker has been deemed to be mentally ill. He is, and you cannot execute mentally ill people in the United States at all.
Right. I would say the majority of the rogues gallery for Batman are criminally insane, so they fall in that same category. That's why
A
they end
lot
up
of
at
them are,
Arkham.
except the Penguin is not. So the Penguin never gets put into Arkham Asylum. He always gets put into the state penitentiary.
Right. Now
Uh,
he's one that I have liked the evolution of the character, where they went away from him being a petty crook to being more of an underworld boss, and that's kind of a neat way to have him, where he's a legitimate businessman running a nightclub, but everybody knows he's dirty. He's a dirty bird.
and World Made of Cardboard asked an interesting question. I'd love to hear you guys' response to that. What is an anti-hero?
To me, it would be somebody who does not, he falls outside of the law. So I think perfect examples of that, like Early On, would be like the Blank from the Dick Tracy series. Rorschach from The Watchmen would fit in there pretty well.
Racer
Punisher,
X from Speed Racer would be kind of like that.
There's a lot of examples of that. Just the tip of my tongue there. Deadpool, for sure, would be a great example of an anti-hero. Maybe even to some extent, because even though Wolverine with the goody X-Men, you knew that he was going to be the one that would take it where the other ones wouldn't.
Right. Well, exactly. An anti-hero, not necessarily a villain turned good. An anti-hero.
Lyric.
That's okay. That's okay. I paused there. I figured he was going to say something prolific. But yeah, an anti-hero is not necessarily a villain turned hero. He could be just like the Punisher, in my opinion. Although he was shown as Spider-Man's villain, he was actually trying to do in his mind something righteous, which was get justice. But they do so by doing things a hero will not and cannot do. To be a true hero, you have to do the right thing. You can't kill your villains. You have to bring them to justice and let justice take its course. You can't take the law per se into your own hands and then that kind of thing. The hero has to do right. He must be on a pedestal, whereas the anti-hero, he could do whatever it takes. The means, the ends justify the means.
Would you say, Bill, it'd be fair to look at that trope of the anti-hero coming from our westerns?
Very much so. We look back at some of the people that we consider to be heroes, when if we look at the actual history of them and not what was ended up in the dime novels at the time. Look at Wyatt Earp and them. They weren't good guys at all.
No, Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, even Billy the Kid, very romanticized. And a lot of their exploits were even against the law in some places, and that's why they went from state to state, because they were avoiding pursuit for things they had done.
Right. For a TV Western, the one that comes to mind is The Paladin.
Yes.
Have gun, will travel. He was very much he had a code, but he was an anti-hero.
Yes. And Grindhead Jim checks in to give us a little support, and he wanted to drop this. He wants everyone to know that after this show is over, to go join them on Twitch at Resurrection Toys, where Marcos is finalizing the Kraken sculpt live.
Yeah, definitely want to check that out.
And what's Bjorn Jorgensen says? He's telling us the Grindhead Jim's in the building. So we'll do that, Grindhead Jim. We'll go over to Twitch and check that out, because I'm curious to see what that sculpt is going to turn out like as well. Lack said the Penguin has a crappy lawyer.
That's true.
And Gojitron comes in with the anti-heroes often use extreme methods to do good, a la Venom, Punisher, Black Adam, Harley. And that brings me to a point. Now you just triggered something in my mind there, Gojitron. I don't like the fact that they're trying to make Black Adam into an anti-hero. Black Adam needs to be a dastardly villain and stay such, in my opinion. What do you think about that, guys?
I'm with you on that. I do not like a heroic Black Adam. It has no appeal to me. Yeah. I like him better as, you know, like you were saying, the dastardly villain or one that
yeah, Black Adam's all about himself. He doesn't give two craps about helping anybody. He has no heart. He's very much egocentric. That's why he was turned to dust in the first place.
Right. The caveat to that, I'd say, is if you're going by the original canon from, you know, the Fawcett comics, he was absolutely, you know, your mustache twirling, pointy-eared villain. When
he had pointed ears, if I'm not mistaken.
He did. When he was featured more with the Justice Society run, and they kind of redid his backstory a bit, it wasn't so much that they were trying to make a hero or anti-hero of him, but the idea that, like we've talked about, he was very much about protecting his nation, and it was kind of, to me, he was more like Dr. Doom. He's like, this is my country.
I think what they were trying to make him a more sympathetic villain, whereas in the past he was never a sympathetic villain. Now, nobody ever had any sympathy for Black Adam back in the day,
right?
But that seems to be another thing that's I say recent because I'm 52 years old, but that seems to be something that's happened recently. Is we must make all the villains be sympathetic in some way, so we have some sympathy for them and understand their plight.
Right, like with what was it? Dr. Sylvana he was always a jerk. You know, some people said he was just a second-rate Lex Luthor, but he had his whole family, and they were all cuckoo, and they were power hungry.
Yeah, and Bjorn asked if Bjorn says Wyatt Earp was a pimp at one time, and he wants to know if Wyatt Earp was a anti-hero. Yeah, the whole Earp family weren't good guys. They were portrayed as good guys in the movies and television shows, and back in the day, the dime novels that were written about them. But no, they weren't the good guys. You know, they basically came in, took over the damn town, and maybe the Cowboys did have a beef with them that was justified.
Mm-hmm. Especially when it came to, dealing with cattle and, having the open range. There was a lot of disputes in the gray area of what was legal.
I dove down that rabbit hole because I'm kind of an obsessive type. And so when I got onto a subject, I really read and watched everything I could read and watch. And when I was big onto the Wild West and the Cowboys, I dove down the Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday rabbit hole pretty hard. And one of the theories was that they were working out a deal between Wyatt Earp and Ike Clanton about some stagecoach robbery. And Ike was going to help Wyatt, and they were going to recover some money together. They had a dirty deal together. And then because Ike knew if his friends had caught wind of him Judasing out, he was nervous, and that led to him doing the all-nighter drinking, which they portrayed in the movie, and calling out the Earps. And then that's what led to the bad blood and the beef and the shootout at the OK Corral, which I don't care what movie you saw about the shootout in the OK Corral, that is not what happened. That thing was probably over in like 5 seconds. You know what I mean? Like they show in the movies, like they're like reloading and there's this whole thing. I'm pretty sure like they showed up, somebody drew down, and before the smoke cleared, it was over.
Yep.
Well, that goes back to the other thing. It's been popular in pop culture for God knows how long, that the high noon shootout in the street and the gunfights that happened in the West, these things were not common. Not at all. Most towns had a law where you couldn't carry a weapon openly anyway. If you came into town, the first thing you had to do was go to the sheriff's office and check your sidearm.
Right.
And all of this this has all been blown out of proportion because of just a few events that have lodged themselves in the public consciousness.
Yeah, I'd say in that vein, one of my favorite films was John Wayne and Jimmy Stewart in The Shootist, which I believe was John Wayne's final film, where he portrayed a fella who had a shady past. He'd been a gun for hire, a gunslinger, a shootist, as they called him. And it was him at the end of his life looking back with some regret and trying to, make some amends and try to steer some youngsters in a different direction so they didn't follow in his footsteps.
Well, that's been an interesting discussion. How we got there, I do not know, but it just how it flows, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But going back up the chat here a little bit, we were talking about Black Adam and Gojitron. His opinion is that the Black Adam status was blame that on The Rock, who didn't want to play an outright villain. I disagree,
Yeah.
Gojitron. They had already portrayed Black Adam as a anti-hero long before the Black Adam movie was even in production, if I'm not mistaken. Joneser can back me up on that, I believe.
Yeah, I think I want to say, did that start in the New 52, or was it even before that?
It was a little before that with the Justice Society run.
Well,
right before Crisis.
It kind of all started with the reintroduction of the character who was originally known as Isis. I don't know what they called her when Tomaz, I think they renamed her and made her Black Adam's love interest, and she ended up getting killed, and he went insane as a result of that and destroyed a whole bunch of things. And then he was redeemed by the Justice Society of America, and actually given status on that team at one point. That all happened when? In the early 2000s?
Well, DC did several crises. Infinite Crisis, which I think was either the second or third Crisis event.
I get confused by those.
Yeah, with that one, that kind of led into another soft reboot. And during that, there was a short run called 52, which was 52 consecutive issues. And in that was where they brought in Isis and Isis's kid brother, who became Kid Osiris. Yeah. And Sobek. They brought the alligator god back into it. So they were borrowing from some of the lore, but kind of tweaking it a bit. And that's kind of what I remember from that story run.
Yeah, you guys did bring up an interesting point when we were talking vigilantes and what makes a hero and an anti-hero. But I mean, I think when you start getting into Black Adam, one could argue maybe he was a fallen hero.
Well, he was. He was originally supposed to be the Captain Marvel of his time. He was given the powers of Shazam, and instead of using them for good, he used them for himself. And that's why he was banished and turned to dust. And of course, we all know that story. But yeah, and then he came back to become one of Captain Marvel's worst enemies, because he had all of Captain Marvel's powers, which is something that ends up happening when you have a overpowered hero like Captain Marvel or Superman. You have to have someone who can match them toe to toe in order to tell the story. And Zazel from Australia has come in. Good to see you, Sergeant Slaughterhouse.
Yeah, I would even add a Reverse Flash to that. I mean, how do you do Flash stories? You're the guy who can solve the whole thing by the third panel.
That's what the TV show degenerated into. If you remember there, Jones, or the recent TV show, which was good in the beginning, in my opinion, but it degenerated into every damn supervillain is another Reverse Flash knockoff kind of character with the same super speed as the Flash.
Yeah, it was supposed to be the villain was a little bit better, and then Barry had to kind of rise to it, like, because every episode started with "I'm Barry Allen and I am the fastest man alive," and then when he finds out about the Reverse Flash, he's like, "I thought I was the fastest man alive," and then they had to get that back.
Yeah, that's the classic hero's journey. But how many times does the hero have to go on the hero's journey to be a hero? Does he have to go on the hero's journey every season? Or does he go on the hero's journey once and then become the hero, and then maybe have the hero's ending at the end of his cycle, kind of like Beowulf?
Yeah, I guess it depends on how many times you're trying to sell the show.
That's true. I mean, we see it over and over again in our beloved comic books, where if you remember all these classic Bronze Age stories were told, and then after Crisis and post Crisis, they were retold again with a different spin on them. Perfect example was that is the way the New Gods were reintroduced in Superman during Byrne's run and right after. A lot of those stories, if you look at them, they're retellings with a little twist on them to the stories that were told in Jimmy Olsen and Orion and other comics that were released at the time. The New Gods comic book itself, Lois Lane, Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane, all those comic books, those stories all tied together back in the day. They were retold, although abbreviated. Even the Dabney Donovan was reintroduced there at that time when the Cadmus Project and all that.
Yeah, to me, when we were asking earlier about like what makes a hero, I think a lot of times there's a defining moment, you know, and like obviously like Spider-Man, the death of Uncle Ben, Batman, the death of his parents. With Dick Tracy, I think it was the slaying of his girlfriend Tess Trueheart's father was the defining moment to make him become the cop, you know. And I think every one of these heroes have a defining moment that makes them decide that this is what their life is going to be and this is how they're going to pursue being the hero, you know. And some of those stories, you know, like I remember watching Spider-Man with my older boy, and when we got to the part, you know, where Uncle Ben is shot and whatnot in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, and my girlfriend at the time and then my son and everybody, they're like, oh, I didn't know this. And I said, what, do you just think this was just some cute kid in little pajamas that just decided to do this out of nowhere? Like there's a reason, usually a tragic reason. There's you show me a hero, I'll show you a tragedy.
Right. And World Made of Cardboard brings up a point. He says he doesn't think that writers today know how to write for heroes anymore. I will go a little step further on that. I think that some of the people who are involved in comic books today are not out to write superhero stories as deconstruct them to destroy our pop culture for a specific reason, in my opinion, because one of the first things that you have to do is destroy our heroes. And superheroes are basically modern day mythology.
I'll even take that a step further, and at the risk of being labeled a horrible person or whatever, due to whatever, I'm gonna go too far down this rabbit hole because I don't want to get eaten alive in the comment section or get canceled. But but I will say that I don't think they're comic writers at all. I think they're political activists and that they're putting in their political agendas and ideology into the comic books, and the goal is not to sell more books, which is what it should be. You're trying to sell comic books. You're a comic book. You want people to buy it. Instead, they're just shoving all of this agenda, if you will, in there. And some of it may be benevolent or good. I'm not saying all of it's crap, but I'm just saying you shove too much of the same thing down somebody's throat and they
well,
nobody's buying it, nobody's reading it.
I know the Comics Gate and all that crap, but if you look at the modern day writers of comic books, there's tip offs. For instance, if they have green hair and perhaps maybe they don't need to be writing comic books, you know. They're bringing a political agenda that doesn't match up with the majority of society into that, in my opinion. I mean, this is the vocal minority who are very, very loud. They're the ones who took over Twitter and right now I think Elon Musk is having his hands full trying to unravel that mess over there that they created.
Actually, and again, risk of being canceled. I think he's doing a fantastic job
He's
unraveling it.
doing a great
You
job.
know?
If you want to see what's going on, just follow the Twitter files as they keep getting
Right.
released, and it is basically validating everything that we suspected all along.
Right.
And
You know, but to kind of put this back on track and get away from the politics, when I read a comic book, I'm trying to escape. I'm not trying to live in this world where we are. Like, I don't want to know what way Spider-Man votes, or you know what I mean? Like, I just want to read a story and get away from it all.
Fantasy,
if I want to see all that crap, I'll turn the news on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what our entertainment used to be. Perfect example is He-Man. I mean, there are no politics in He-Man. It's all about Skeletor being the bad guy and He-Man opposing him. End. Lax says he's been watching the original Phantom show from the 1940s on Prime. I'm going to have to check that out. And Gilster says there was a Phantom show, 1940. Yeah,
I think
looks like
those
we're going to
were
have
the
to check that
serials.
out.
Yeah, the ones they'd have in the cinema where they do a cliffhanger every week or whatever.
Oh, are you talking about the old serials, the Phantom serial? There was a Phantom serial, and it has there's quite some history in that. If you guys want to look into that. And Lack says writers today don't know anything about anything. And World Made of Cardboard said it's all crap. So.
Speaking of those old Republic serials, Bill, what did you think of the one that they did for Captain Marvel? Because they changed his lore a little bit in that, didn't they?
Slightly. Shazam actually showed up and gave him his powers, but he didn't have to ride on the subway to find that out. It was all trying to connect it to a scarab. And
right.
I think Jerry Ordway kind of put that back into the comic book mythology when he did the his run on Shazam. Was that back in the late 90s?
Yeah, the Power of Shazam, I think, was that run. And yeah, he definitely borrowed more about the idea of Billy's parents having some sort of connection with archaeology or something like that.
And Joneser says, Gojatron says, Joneser is 100% correct. Modern writers are inserting themselves into their worldview, into legacy heroes. I agree with Gojatron's take on that, and there is an agenda behind that. Now, Lack, the worst thing is now, if I were to dye my hair green, I'm automatically a liberal. Can a person just dye their hair and not be a political movement? That's true, you can. But the problem is that most people with green hair tend to have some kind of political agenda and are more than happy to try to enforce it upon you. And it once again, I know it's a stereotype, but the reason it's a stereotype for a freaking reason.
Now, if you've been dropped into a vat of Axis chemicals and you come out with green hair, I think that's an exception.
That would be the Joker, right? And Lack says that these are the old serials, and yeah, the Phantom serial was I think Lee Falk was involved in that back in the day, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And Susudio joins us. Hey there, good to see you. We just kind of have been flowing around talking about what makes a superhero a superhero. We talked about anti-heroes, and that kind of brought us into politics, which we're kind of stepping very lightly here, but
bringing it back around to comics where we started. Joneser, do you feel like talking about some of those Masters of the Universe mini comics we were chatting about last night?
There we go.
I do. I had just bought a pile of them. Here shortly, maybe you could put me on pause. I'll go upstairs and go get them. But what drove me down the rabbit hole is I've been looking on eBay because I wanted a mini comic, a He-Man and the Power Sword. Now I've got it in reprint form. I've got it in that I don't know if it was Dark Horse or whatever. They had that thick Masters of the Universe mini comic series book Bill and I had talked about before. Lyric's actually reading through that right now.
Okay.
But I wanted an original copy. You know, I had a glossy one in my 40th anniversary set, but I wanted the wrinkly, old, rusty, stapled, you know, like I wanted a good one, you know. And so I looked on eBay, and some of them suckers, they go anywhere from $60 to $80 for that one single mini comic.
Wow. Is it because it's a rare or variant, or
it is a little bit on the rare side because it's one of the first ones. I mean, they do have examples of them out there, and there are many listings, but a lot of people that have them aren't letting them go for cheap, you know?
Yeah.
And, so I wanted to do a good buy. I seen a guy that had a lot of mini comics and a couple Masters of the Universe toy posters. So I thought I could slap some toy posters on the wall. I'd get some extra mini comics. Most of them I already had, but they had a He-Man and the Power Sword in that lot, and they wanted $35 for the whole lot. So I was like, man, worth it just for that one comic right there. You know, but I won't forget all this extra crap. So I bought it. It was a buy it now, just bang. I don't even think the thing was listed 5 minutes before I bought it, so I felt pretty smart, you know. Then I get the thing in the mail about a week later, and as I'm digging through it, it was the variant Bill had talked about where it didn't have all the pages, you know. It was the shortened version of the story. And then so I'm like, oh man, I want one that has the whole story. So now I'm looking to buy another one. And I'm messaging eBay people like, hey, how many pages does this have? Like,
yeah,
I think it's supposed to have 26. Was it?
Yeah,
Bill?
yeah, it does. It's quite a. Those little storybooks were quite long. And matter of fact, when I was doing my research, I didn't realize that they were actually pretty long little stories. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Since you need to go get something, and I want to go get something too, I'm going to play some commercials for a minute. And that'll give us time to get our P's and Q's together here, guys.
All righty. Hopefully my internet won't crash again.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back right after these messages.
And now these messages. Coming from the farthest reaches of the universe to challenge the worst villains on Earth are the most powerful heroes ever in the Battle of the Superpowers Collection. Impossible. The Hall of Justice under attack. Batman behind bars. New from Kenner's Superpowers Collection. Hall of Justice playset. Some assembly required. Vehicles and figures sold separately.
Who's the trapdoor, Batman?
Brainiac's taken over the computer. Joker in the elevator. Evil forces joining for a final assault. Who can restore order?
Superman!
Can Superman save the Hall of Justice? You decide.
Behind its wall of beautiful teeth, Toothopolis is under constant siege by the Cavity Creeps.
We make Hulking teeth.
Cresty, look! Crest team, the Cavity Creeps are coming.
We'll fight them with Crest's fluoride.
Crest!
Yay! Crest! Watch treats, see your dentist, and fight the Cavity Creeps like the Crest team.
Fight cavities with Crest.
This toy comes with something that can really open up a kid's imagination. Its own legend.
He-Man! Skeletor is his enemy.
It's the Masters of the Universe collection. And for my kids, the legend begins here with Castle Grayskull.
It holds the powers of the universe.
He-Man, Skeletor has captured Castle Grayskull. We must stop his evil power. To Grayskull!
Defeat He-Man's forces, but leave him to me.
Here I am, Skeletor.
He-Man! Skeletor is getting away!
But Castle Grayskull is safe with us.
Nothing's safe while Skeletor is out there. And so the legend continues in this Masters of the Universe collection. And in the imagination of my kids. Look for it. It's new from Mattel.
Here are a few words about Levi's jeans and cords.
Levi's.
Hey, go straight. Okay. Go down. Go down. Say what? Go down. Get down. Go down. Go down.
I got it. You get it.
Levi's.
welcome back. Looks like Joneser's still out for a minute, but we had talked about this book, and I think Bjorn in the chat had mentioned it, if there was a place to see this. Yes, this is a collected volume here of all of the He-Man mini comics. It's in hardback. It's pretty thick. Dark Horse did it. Yeah, I think you can still get this on Amazon. I'm pretty sure it's still a decent price. It originally was pretty expensive when it first came out, but if you look, you could probably get this at a decent price. Yes, that's $49.99 US, what it says on the back here, but you can get this on Amazon at a discount, I think. And inside is each of the mini comics has been restored perfect. You can read all the way through. It even includes the She-Ra comic books at the time, and perfect addition to your He-Man collection, in my opinion. And
now, are those all just one shots, Bill? Or are there any rhyme or reason to the story? Does it follow sequentially?
They have a bit of a storyline to them. The first four absolutely do, because that was one story that was split into four.
Okay.
When it was written. The others do have a progression, not necessarily a running storyline, but there is a progression in there.
So reading them in that collected volume puts them kind of in an order that
They're
makes sense
in
for
the
reading.
order in which they were released.
Okay.
It does put them in an order, but it will also add to your confusion, because some stories don't exactly dive or go together, or the whole kind of books. So
one big example of that would be Point Dread in particular, since I have the Point Dread playset vintage recently bought. You have Point Dread storybook with record that was included with the playset, which has a story called The Power of Point Dread, in which it shows that Zodak was the one who gave Point Dread to He-Man in order to restore the balance that Skeletor had done. Then you have the mini comic that was included with the figure, also called The Power of ... Point Dread, which tells the story a little bit different of Point Dread. And then, of course, I think Point Dread also appears in Tale of Teela, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you have these conflicting Point Dread stories that, both times they're acting like it's the first time they've seen it, if I remember right.
Well, and another thing, you'll see a lot of people, even on the internet, with their websites that are trying to give history to this, will say that the mini comic Power of ... Point Dread was included with the Point Dread playset, when it was not. It was included with a figure. The story that was included with the playset was the storybook with record. I got it right here.
Right.
I just bought this recently to add back into my collection. This is not a mini comic. This is actually a storybook, and it included a record in the back, which allowed you to listen to the story. And it goes in a little sleeve back here in the back. But yeah, this was what was included with the playset, and it's in comic format, but it was drawn by Alfredo Alcala, and in my opinion, it more fits in with the original storybook mini comics, the first four that were included with the original 8. Wouldn't you agree there, Joneser?
I would, and he was the artist on all of those stories, I believe, so that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Now it doesn't tell us who wrote that, but I can guarantee you that the guy who wrote the original story for the mini comics, Don Glut, did not write that, but Don Glut did write this story that we all know, and he wrote that as one continuous story, and that was split up into 4 stories to make 4 storybooks.
Now, this is the same Don Bluth that did Space Ace and the Dirk the Daring and those kind of stories too, or
Don Glut or Glut.
oh, Don Glut. I thought
Don,
you said Don Bluth.
no, Don Glut, I think, or Glut. I can't remember how he actually pronounces his name, but he's done quite a lot. If you look into his background, I mean, he's done cinema, he's done TV shows, but at the time he was what we would call today a hack writer. He was hired to write this story, and simply because he had a relationship with an editor over at Western Publishing, which does the Golden Books, and at the time they had a relationship with Mattel, so he was just kind of an editor said, "Okay, I know perfect guy to get you guys story to write," and he put him on the thing, and there's an interview. It's no longer there on his website, but of course it is archived over Internet Archive with Don Glut telling that story. Now let me see if I've got that over here. I think I just might. Aha! Look what I have here. So if you go over to the Internet Archive, there is an exclusive. Let's see if I can pull this up right here. Okay, and let me interact with that and see if I can get that to come up. Come on. I can't get it to scroll, but if you guys want to see that, I might be able to. Yeah, I can do this. There we go. There's an email interview with Don Glut, the writer of the original 4 mini comics, and he'll basically tell you a lot of things that will hurt your heart when it comes to his writing of that. He was basically a writer for hire. He was doing it for the money. He really didn't give a shit about the story. However, he is responsible for the naming of Telos. She was named after an elephant in another television show. He was dating a girl named Linda Gray at the time, and that's where the name Gray Skull for Castle Grayskull comes from. At one point, they asked him had he continued writing the mini comics where the series would have gone, and he goes, "I don't know, and I don't care." Basically,
Right.
So
yeah, for a casual Motu fan like myself, the lore is very confusing because there's so many different variants. You've got what's in the mini comics, you've got what DC Comics did, then you've got what they've done in the Filmation cartoon. So it's like they don't all jive.
Well, do you want to go into that, Joneser, or do you want me to? I mean, we got some stuff on that, and that's another discussion. This can go on a while too.
It can, and the only thing I'll add to that is that the ultimate goal was really not to set an established universe. They're making that up as they went, and that came out that way. They were trying to sell toys. And so, like, if you've seen the Toys That Made Us on Netflix, they have an episode on He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. They also have a better one, I think it's called The Powers of Grayskull or whatever it is, and the story of He-Man. They get into this much better than I could, but to kind of paraphrase, they're making this up as they go. They're developing the toy. They do a toy show, and the guy's like, "Oh, they got Star Wars, promoting Star Wars, the movie. What do you got?" He's like, "Oh, didn't I tell you they're gonna have a mini comic and he didn't know they were going to do that. He made it up, and then
he's trying to sell it. He was trying to sell it. They were at a convention or meeting just with stores that were going to carry these toys, and the representatives were there, and they go, "Well, how do kids know how to play with these toys? How are you going to present the storyline to them?" Well, "Oh, did I not tell you we were going to do these comic books included with the figures?" And he just made that up off the fly. So then he had to make good on his promise, and that's why they had to go and hire Glut to write these stories for him. And Glut just wrote a generic fantasy story. To be honest with you, he really wasn't looking to go anything cerebral on that, and he'll tell you that in that interview that I just showed a minute ago. Well, what did that lead to? Well, that led to another meeting of the toy collectors that we're going to get to, where some guy said, well, 5-year-olds can't read, so how are they going to read these comics? Oh, did I not tell you we're doing a cartoon show? Well, they weren't, so that meant that they had to find someone to do that for them. Well, Filmation stepped up to the plate on that. And if you watch the commercials that we just played a minute ago, that was the prototype of the commercial was shown on there that actually had Filmation's first attempt at doing He-Man there. And so another person, and I don't remember who wrote this, wrote a Bible for Filmation, which combined a lot of this stuff. And it's a long read, it's dry, and you've read it before, Joneser, and so have I. I think there's even a YouTube video where someone narrates it, and that's almost impossible to watch too, because it just goes on and on and on. This is the one where Orko was called Glorpo in it, and Filmation had to change his name to Orko so they could do the reverse sales and stuff without having to redraw him every time. But on and on. So this treatment for Filmation was just a treatment. And I think someone at DC Comics must have got their hands on that, because a lot of what's in that treatment ended up being in the DC Comics miniseries that was put out right after DC Comics Presents, in which he met Superman.
Right.
Well, I think a lot of the problem is a lot of the material was in flux, and they were still developing it as they were putting it out there. So then that's how you get these conflicting stories, is of all this different stuff, because they didn't exactly sit down and set a world. They were making up a world as they went. And so it kept changing and messing around. And like I remember as kids, I don't know if I saw it on some packaging, or I gotta bet this would be worth a fortune if you could find some, but where Zodak, it said evil cosmic enforcer. And so we thought Zodak was a bad guy. Well, then later you see him in the cartoon and he's a good guy. And then in the comics, or I think in that Talon Fighter one, he's more a neutral character, and he was representing the balance of good and evil, which I always hated that. Pick a side. But,
don't sit on the fence.
Right. But
well, they never knew what to do with Zodak. Zodak was originally supposed to be a bounty hunter.
Like Boba Fett.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's some material that wasn't released to the public, but was released to toy buyers for department stores or what have you. But it was a pamphlet. I think you can get that and read it over at Battle Ram's blog. But that's the one in which Stratos was a bad guy in that as well. So Stratos was evil, and Zodak was a bounty hunter. This also changed. Part of that was because of the cross cells on the back of the packages. The original 8 just had them all there, the eight characters. But then they later releases, they started the heroic warriors were at the top, evil warriors were at the bottom. So if we have 8, then that means that Zodak is take him out of the equation. We have 4 good guys and 3 bad guys. Well, let's just put Zodak over here with the bad guys and call him evil. And that was because the marketing department doesn't give a damn anything about the lore or the storyline. They're just trying to market product.
Right.
Sell toys. That was the whole
Well, there's
idea.
a couple of the characters that did their own, kind of heel turns. It's like Trapjaw, depending on which lore. Wasn't he a good guy astronaut at one time who got converted? And
I know in the series Bible, Beastman, Triclops, and Evil Lyn were with Marlon Glenn in the spaceship headed to Earth. And Beastman, I think, had a silly name. It was something like Harry Beastman or whatever. It's like, really?
on the nose.
It was kind of corny or kind of silly, and they ultimately never developed.
And believe it or not, some of that ended up in the storybooks that were released overseas in like England, and a lot of that, believe it or not, ended up being part of the lore that's in the German audio plays that we hear.
That's where.
Now
that's where we got the anti-Eternia He-Man was from the German storybook.
Let me tell everybody this. I'm going to go ahead and let a cat out of the bag on this. Our friend Rollo in Mexico not only has all of those German audio plays in his possession, but he has an ongoing project that he's doing right now. And he has done a few of them, but he is redoing them all in English. And he is looking for character voice actors to help him do that. Get in touch with him. Get in touch with him. He needs people to play parts, and I'll tell you now, the German audio plays are excellent. The storyline is vastly different than what you think of, but it's good. And like I said, many elements from the from that original story Bible treatment are in that.
So if y'all run over to Resurrection Toys later today, you can ask him about that in the chat. I'm sure Rolo will be there and he'll let you know what he's working on.
And I was telling you guys yesterday something that I've been doing in my head canon. We all have a head canon. I think you have one as well there, Joneser. But I was remembering an incident that happened in the miniseries that DC did, full-size comic book miniseries. I think it was 3 issues, where Prince Adam, that's the first appearance of Prince Adam, if I'm not mistaken. He first appeared in DC Comics there.
I'm not sure if it's there or if it's in Presents 47, because he's in that.
Well, yeah, but the DC Comics version of the story, which actually, in my opinion, DC Comics Presents is actually the first part of that. So you have to read DC Comics Presents, then you read the preview insert that was in all the comics that were released that month, and then after that you have the 3-issue limited series. It all leads into one another. It's all one coherent story, in my opinion. But there's where Prince Adam was first presented, was in DC Comics. But he was introduced as a vastly different character than what he ended up being in Filmation, which was basically a milquetoast kind of a guy who wasn't necessarily heroic.
Right. I mean, I know in some of the earlier appearances they had him like in the pub, like Thor, like drinking the mead or just
drinking. He's an alcoholic womanizer,
right?
In the way he presented himself, or the way he was presented in the DC Comics. So there's a vast difference there. So, but
he also had powers. Like there was a point where he like tied a dumbbell in a knot. And he wasn't wimpy.
Right, he was not. And but that kind of leads me to something that I wanted to do to try to reconcile all of this in my mind, or in my story play here. There was an incident that happened where He-Man is in the Vine Jungle and he meets a tribe of savage people who live there. And then you find out he knows these people and they know him, and he has a history with them, but they never went into that and they never expanded upon that. And it was just kind of dropped. But the leader of the tribe and He-Man were old friends. Well, how did that come about? Well, in my mind, to try to take the original 4 storybooks that were included with the He-Man figures and reconcile that with what came in DC Comics, I thought to myself, what if when Prince Adam was young, he was separated from the royal family and he had to grow up with this tribe in the jungle, and he became the tribe of He, let's just say, had adopted him, and he was raised with them and became a jungle man, and then later on met a green sorceress who gave him the vestments of power to become He-Man. And then later on, he was reintroduced to his real family, the royal family there in the kingdom of Eternia, south of the Vine Jungle, and that's how that came about. So, what do you think about that idea there, Jones?
I love that idea, and I think it connects all the dots really well. In fact, quite honestly, we had spoken on that a little bit last night, and when I laid my little Joneser head down to sleep and I was thinking about He-Man stuff, I was like, man, that is such a good idea. I wish I'd have thought of that, because that really connects the dots a lot more beautifully than the way I did. Because I wrote my own little Masters of the Universe short stories for my own entertainment. I've never put them out there or even blog them or nothing, but I enjoyed that version of events much more than what I had come up with. I really like that.
Bjorn brings up a very interesting idea, and I'll say yes to that. Bjorn Tarzan is considered a hero, and he is also a superhero. A book that I suggest that you find is Philip Jose Farmer's book. That's called. If I've got it on the shelf back here, I'm looking. Yes, Tarzan Alive. If you want to see a very good presentation of what Edgar Rice Burroughs originally wanted, and the bringing it into the Walt Newton family that Philip Jose Farmer had created for bringing all superheroes and pulp characters into one world, Tarzan fits in very good. And Lack wants to know, who did he fight? Pythons. I'm going to tell you who Tarzan fought, Jack. And you go back and you read Edgar Rice Burroughs' novels, Tarzan fought pirates. He fought great apes. He fought pythons, of course. He fought elephants. He fought lions. Burroughs called them tigers originally, but that was changed after the pulp novel. The pulp magazines came out and they were put into a novel, because there are no tigers in Africa. But getting off the subject, Tarzan also fought the Nazis. Tarzan fought the Nazis. Tarzan then began going into the heart of the darkest of Africa and found lost tribes of people. At one point, he crossed the Great Morass Swamp into an area where the dinosaurs were still there, and he met the I can't remember what their names were, but they were people who had tails and looked more like cats than people. And it goes on, and a lot of lost civilizations. He found a lost colony of Romans that still lived like the Romans did. There was the city of gold and the city of ivory, where he met the evil queen, and just it's much more than was ever shown on Johnny Weissmuller movies, where he was just shown to be a mindless savage. And Largo brings up John Carter of Mars. And John Carter of Mars, another of Edgar Rice Burroughs' great creation, lives in the same world as Tarzan. At one point, Tarzan got into a great dirigible, went through the opening at the polar opening, and went into the center of the earth, where there was a whole world in there. And Joneser's nodding in agreement. Joneser has read all of this in his childhood, just like I did, didn't you?
I am very familiar. I didn't dive down the Tarzan hole very, very far, but I do know some of what you were talking about. I do have some very old Tarzan comics from the 50s and 60s that I whenever I find these old treasures, I can't help but paw through them. And I think I enjoy Tarzan more, obviously, in his jungle setting, with the swinging from a vine and a sidekick and things like that. That's kind of more where I think he belongs. But I mean, yeah, you close your eyes and think Tarzan fighting pirates, Tarzan fighting Nazis. I mean, how cool is that?
Absolutely. And a lot of people do not realize how detailed Burroughs's stories were when it came to that. And he created a whole Mangani language. The Mangani were the great apes that raised Tarzan. He created a whole Mangani language for them that was presented in these novels. And then the novels began to intersect with one another, because we had Jason Gridley, who created this shortwave radio that was able to communicate with people who had gone to the center of the earth, But this shortwave radio could also communicate with Carson and Venus. It could also communicate with John Carter of Mars, which brought them all into one shared universe. So
Right.
this predates Marvel Comics by a long shot with a shared universe. And Lex says, I had no idea about Tarzan, and I know my dad really liked them. And they're still in print, I think. Different publishers have them. And Tarzan, most of those actual novels are beginning to come into public domain now.
And in the comic, excuse me, comic books, Dynamite, Dark Horse, a couple of these other third-party publishers have really done a great job of bringing back some of these classic heroes and doing team ups and crossovers, whether it's Flash Gordon and the Phantom and what was the magician's name that hung out with those
Great
fellows?
the Magician.
Yep, and his buddy Lothar, or it's the the ones like the Man of Bronze, Doc Savage, the Spider, which was another Shadow type character. The Shadow. They've brought those back in some comic formats and
Spider,
done
the
some
Master of
storytelling.
Men, was a pulp book that was written back in the pulp days. Yes, and this brings us back to our beloved hero He-Man. A lot of this has its roots in those.
Mm-hmm.
And Joneser and I had gotten into a discussion about how I, in my head, had tried to mesh the original 4 storybook mini comics with the later DC series that DC had done. And Joneser had in his head canon another way of trying to mesh those together. And I think he was trying to tell us about that when I got on the Tarzan kick here. Sorry about that, Joneser.
Oh, you're fine. It made me, like I said, I was envious of your version of events because I thought it was better than what I came up with. But I was also trying to tie different knots into the same rope. What got me back into He-Man, which I never really left, but I mean, you grow up, you do other things, and then something, hey, there was this thing that was really special to you. And that was when the 2000X show came out, in early 2000. And I had this total He-Man revival where I was recollecting the toys, and I just really dove down this rabbit hole. And they had their own version of how He-Man went. And so I was trying to tie some of those knots together in the same rope. And what I came up with is, in that series, they had a character called King Grayskull, who was the original He-Man. And he had fought the Snake Men way back pre-Eternia and the Horde of different people. And I thought, my idea was if you took King Grayskull, and he was the jungle He-Man, which I believe in the Masters of the Universe classics, they did Ular or whatever they called him. And so I had him be the jungle He-Man and meet the sorceress or the green goddess or what have you, get the artifacts of power, battle the Snake Men, ultimately die, and then the artifacts are sitting there waiting for Prince Adam at a later date. And I thought that was a great way to pay homage to those original mini comics, which I loved, and still put that modern rub on them a little bit too. Oh, very cool. Very, very cool. I'm sorry.
I said she be naked there, like, look, she naked. And I'm telling you what, the thing about that is, if you read these original books, they're not long reads either. On Mars, nobody wore clothes. They wore harnesses to hold their weapons on, but otherwise they were all naked. Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
You're fine. Well, one thing they did in those original minis, if you remember, He-Man had like a force shield or what have you, or he had different garments. But I didn't like the idea of him changing garment because it didn't look any different anyway. It was just the same armor that wasn't armor. It was just like a leather strap. But in my version of events, they had there was a Filmation cartoon where they talked about Korodite. And then that little centerpiece was made of cordite, and that was what gave He-Man his power. And so I wrote that in there, but also with the force field effect, because one of the problems I always had with He-Man is he was just too powerful, like Superman. Like Skeletor had to fight from underneath, whereas, you know, He-Man just seemed invincible. And then you have these characters with like swords and stuff, but it's like if He-Man could knock around Superman, could a sword cut him? How could he ever really be in jeopardy? So the way I got worked around that was the because if you read the original minis, of course you had, He-Man was a little more killable or harmable, you know, than he later would become. But I liked the force shield idea for like a magical attack or a ray attack, but it didn't work that way when it came to like a sword cut. So he could be harmed by Triclops' sword or Skeletor's sword. He couldn't just stand there and catch the blade and snap it in half.
Right.
He had to battle like he had the same stakes as anyone else, which you know, that's what I felt like was the problem with He-Man, was like, you know, I mean, just like Superman or Flash, it's hard to pin him down and put him in jeopardy without some crazy plot armor.
Well, you know, that brings up a point. You know, I've got to move some stuff around here behind me to get to my figures, but I'm going to bring out a couple of He-Man figures, and we're going to talk about something that just got brought up just now. And I can't wait for my stickers to get here so I can restore this battle ram. In the original storybooks, He-Man had 2 power garments. Basically, that was the straps that are around his chest. The harness was called garments. One of them was his garment of strength, and the other was his force field garment. They both looked exactly alike in the comics. I think that was originally going to be kind of like Big Jim. They were going to you were going to be able to buy packs of different armors for He-Man, and that never worked out. But the idea of him having 2 garments still stayed in the storyline. So yeah, He-Man himself, without his harness on, he's stronger than a normal person because he was raised in the jungle as a jungle man, kind of like Tarzan. And however, with the garment of strength on, he gains probably 10-fold strength. Without that on, he could put the force field garment on, where he's not super strong, but you can't hurt him with the conventional attacks. And I'm going to go through my boxes here. I've got a couple.
So,
of
Jones, are in any of those mini comics, did they have an explanation for like Thunder Punch He-Man or his power armor, how he got those? Or
not the battle armor one, but for the Thunder Punch they did. It was like a special gift. In fact, it's funny you mentioned that. I've got it right here. It was in the Treachery of Modulok mini, where the Thunder Punch power debuts. And yeah, they do have some explanation for that. I think the Flying Fist one had a comic as well, which is actually one of the more rare mini comics to pin down if you're a guy looking. I think the Flying Fists of Power is one of the rare ones. That one and the Ultimate Battleground Eternia one, and there's another one that I'm not thinking of.
The Thunder Punch was kind of unique in its gimmick because it used the cap gun rolls to make the thunder sound, right?
Absolutely.
All right, going back to He-Man's original 2 garments. So he had a garment of strength, and here we have his garment of strength that he's wearing. Jones, are you going to get a kick out of this? All right, so he's got his garment of strength on. So now he needs to have a force field on. So he changes to his force field garment, and I have that here in my collection. And here is his force field garment.
With no sword holder.
So what this figure is wearing is a vintage He-Man harness from Vintage Figures. But and in my play, I do have the separate harnesses here, and then there is a way of differentiating between the two.
You see, and that's a forgotten piece of the lore that a lot of fans, they don't use, and they never used in any of the cartoons or comics that I'm aware of outside of the minis.
Well, that goes back. That goes back to the split power sword as well. That kind of went away in Filmation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, with Filmation, they kind of tried to borrow from Captain Marvel Shazam with the idea that the sword was the source of all of his magic power, and he could swap between mortal Prince Adam and He-Man.
Yeah,
right.
Originally, the sword was a magical artifact that was capable of performing magical things. Skeletor originally wanted that power sword to open up a portal to bring the people from his dimension who looked just like him over to Eternia to help him conquer Eternia. It was the sorceress herself who put an enchanted lock on Grayskull and let the power sword be the key. And then the power sword was split again and hidden in secret places.
Okay.
Bill, I don't know if you know this, but our favorite Masters of the Universe guy, Kevin Smith, he had written a 4-issue prequel to his wonderful Revelation show. And in that show, he does bring up Skeletor coming from the other dimension full of Skeletor people. And
I did not read that, but I saw exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and he had a wife and kids, and he was a family man, and it was like, it was one of those things where it's like, I'm glad he did his homework enough to know about this, but then for the giant curled up turd that he put on it, it's like, can you cut Skeletor's nuts off anymore? Make him a family man with children, and now you made him sympathetic, and I think you kind of ruin it. Like, to me, like, it's the same thing like X-Men did with Magneto. Like, Magneto could be a villain all the way until he couldn't. After a while, the sympathies lied with him.
Yeah, now with the power sword, the gimmick with that in the original toy line was it literally was the key for the jaw bridge, right?
Yeah, right. It was part of the original play pattern was that Castle Grayskull was not a good or an evil place. It was a place to be conquered to gain the power that lied within, and it could be conquered by good guys or bad guys, hence the flag on top, which has two sides, a good side and a bad side, which was presented depending upon who had control of the castle at the time. And the power sword, like I said, while it did have its own magical powers, the main thing, the main MacGuffin there was that it was the key to open Castle Grayskull. So whoever gained control of both halves of the power sword, ergo gained control of the castle as well. And that was Skeletor's ultimate goal. He-Man and Skeletor didn't necessarily each have a half of the power sword originally, although I think it degenerated to that later because of the way that the toys were put, with He-Man having one half and Skeletor having another half. The halves weren't good or evil either. I think storylines have degenerated to that as well. It was just had been split into two halves. And like I said, neither one had those halves. The halves were hidden in secret places. Originally, the sorceress hid one half at the highest peak of Eternia, where Stratos lived, and the other half was under the hardest rock in Eternia, where He-Man had built his home. They didn't know they were there, but when Skeletor found them there, I think the spirit of Grayskull then split the sword again in another story and put the halves in other dimensions so they couldn't be found.
Is that why He-Man used the battle axe and shield originally?
That was his main form of weapons in the mini comics. The sword was not something that he had in his possession until later. If DC Comics, when they did their mini series, part of that was Mattel trying to find decent comic book writers to write mini comics to include with the figures. they got with DC Comics and said, well, you guys are comic book writers. Can y'all write comics, mini comics for our series? And DC Comics said, yeah, we'll be glad to, but you got to let us write a mini series for our comic books as well. And that's how that came about. So there is a demarcation, a clear delineation between the original storyline and the later mini comics that were actually comic books with word balloons and the whole bit. Some people include the first few mini comics, the ordeal of Manny Faces, the introduction of Ram Man, Trap Jaw, and Triclops in the original storyline. However, if you read them, there is a very vast literary difference between those stories. Wouldn't you agree there, Joneser?
I would agree completely, and you can tell that the lore is getting a little more buttoned up at this point. You know, they're starting to kind of catch a groove and catch what they've got here. If you don't mind, I'll kind of show you here. I've got a lot of these, and I've been
hang on to that thought for just a second,
sure.
Joneser. I'm not picking on you like I love you, my brother, but I'm fixing to you just triggered something in me. That symbol that is on the chest of He-Man is not the Iron Cross. It is a Maltese cross. The Maltese cross, just like the swastika, which was originally a Buddhist symbol, was co-opted by Nazi Germany and well, we'll call them Yazis, the bad guys from World War II. They co-opted that symbol and turned it into what it was, but it's not. It's the Maltese cross. Every time someone calls it an Iron Cross, it triggers me. I'm going to correct them and tell them it is a Maltese cross. I would prefer that if you're on my channel, that you not refer to it as that and keep that going, and let us call that the Maltese cross was what it was. Somebody else asked a question. Who decides who is bad or good? The flag, the castle, the person? No. The good guys and bad guys in fantasy worlds are absolutely either good or bad. No one decides if they're good or bad. Their actions determine who is good or bad. The castle doesn't decide. The flag only tells you who has control of the castle, a good guy or a bad guy.
Right, because the stickers on it, one side was the good guy side and one side was the bad side. You just flip it, right?
It was basically Mattel's version to capture the flag. And that was more or less what you were playing. They would fight over the castle, and it was a neutral battleground at the time. And then later it became the source of He-Man's power and different.
Right. And I'm going to bring you up full screen there because you were going to show us something and bring some thoughts out there, Joneser.
Well, yeah, I got this. This was that He-Man and the Power Sword mini comic that I had gotten. It's got the famous Hot Wheel thing in the background.
That is a later release of that book, by the way. The original release did not have that ad on the back of it.
Okay. See, this is where I wanted to pick your brain because I knew you would know this kind of stuff. It also has it's a hard cardboard cover, whereas like this version is a soft, bendy cover. You know, so it's very different than you know, most of the other mini comics I have. This other, the King of Castle Grayskull here, this also has the hard cover too.
The original 8, when they first came out, the mini comics had the cover that you have, the one in your hand right now. Show the back side of that. That was the ad that was on the back of all 4 of those mini comics. Turn it around to the front. Now you're froze. There we go. Look in the corner where it says free. You see, read that. Read that.
Free illustrated book with purchase.
Okay. The original 8 that were released in stores had that blurb on the front of them, and it said free in them. You will find variations where the word free is not there. It's just red.
Just to further down this rabbit hole, some of them have these little inserts that have like rebates or giveaways in
The
them.
original 4 mini comics that were included with the 8 when they came out in 1982 had those ads in the middle. Everything that you're showing there, that is an original mini comic. The one you showed before that had the softer cover, that's a later release of the same book.
Right. And that was a Battle of the Clouds with the softer cover. And then here with this,
I have a Battle in the Clouds in my collection that has the same cover as the other. Yes.
This is a hardcover.
That's
this
original.
Soft cover.
That's later.
So the soft cover was later?
Yeah, the soft cover was later. The original is the one in your hand now. That was the original release of that.
And that also has that rebate.
That's correct. That ad there in the middle that shows the later release characters was a tease for the next wave.
Okay. And then when you go on here, like I've got the Trap Jaw one here, and it has a cross cell inside, but it does not have the rebate thing. Now I have a coverless version of this one. Oh no, this one also has it too. But I have a coverless version of it as well. But I'd heard you saying that you missing some mini comics or you didn't have certain issues. Do you remember which ones you do have?
Okay, I've got I think I've got Battle in the Clouds and I've got King of Castle Grayskull.
Okay, just those two.
Yeah, would
you have any interest in anything beyond the original run of them?
All right, if I were to want to have a collection of the He-Man mini comics here, my dream would be to have the first 4, okay, original with the cardboard cover and the word free mini comic in the corner on the red blurb, the backside being the scroll ad with the Alcala artwork on it for the figures and the vehicles. I would want He-Man and the Power Sword. I've already got Battle in the Clouds. I've got the King of Castle Grayskull. I would need Vengeance of Skeletor.
Okay. Because I've been diving down this mini comic rabbit hole pretty hard and getting lots of them and whatnot. And as you do that, you end up getting a stack of doubles.
Yeah, and then of course there are the variations that came out later, which when they re-released the storybooks with some of the figures, they reduced the pages in some of those. He-Man and Power Sword being the most one that comes to my mind.
This one stops on page 16.
Right. They took out some of the middle of that, trimmed a little fat there, if you will.
The King of Castle Grayskull I got here goes to page 22.
Yeah, that's about right. And some of those may not be missing the ads in the middle because the children would cut those out and then redeem them. But
now the mini comics that are coming with Origins, are they all new stories or some of those reprints?
Yeah,
they're new and they're not. The page count is like 4 pages or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
4 to 6 pages if even, and then they're real quick, short stories. The artwork's nice and glossy. They're very cool. If you're unlucky enough to get an international release, you're gonna have to use your imagination. Big Bad Toy Store's been stuck with the European cards for a while, and so the last couple
they're not stuck with them, Jones. I don't mean to tell you you're wrong, but what it is Big Bad wants to be the first to release them. In order to do that, they have to take the European release or the foreign release card backs to be the first out there.
Right.
And they there was such a demand for the U.S. card backs that with the mini comics Trap Jaw, they actually had 2 releases of him. The first one that everybody ended up buying, and the one that I'm going to be getting here shortly because it landed on my pile of loot, and that is the U.S. cardback for mini comic Trap Jaw.
Well, you see, and that kind of fell into my trap because I want to be one of the first ones to get them, because we all know when you put your video out first, you're going to get a lot of views on it if you're early.
Right.
So then that's where they got me as the fly in the ointment there, you know. And yeah, I guess my choice of wording about I'm stuck with them. I'm not stuck with it, but it's like it is kind of disappointing because I wanted to read the story and it doesn't have any words, so I just had to use my imagination.
Yeah, and that I get it. I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, I want it and I want it now, so I'll go ahead and take what I can get. Gilster says he loves the Motu Golden books. Well, that brings up a point. Some of the soft cover Golden books, like the Trap and such, the Caverns of Fear, those actually were the original storyline continuations of the original mini comics, 4 mini comic storylines. Lack's going deer hunting. We'll see you later, Lack. What's that there, Largo?
I was just going to say Lack is going to have to head out, but just wanted to wish him a good day.
Take care, Lack, and good luck. I hope you get a big one. But anyway, go ahead there, Jones, or you got the floor, my man.
Did you get into any of the later mini comics?
Okay, going back to that, I kind of got sidetracked. Okay, I want He-Man the Power Sword. I want Vengeance of Skeletor. But then beyond that, I want those mini comics, the Ordeal of Manny Faces, the one that introduced Ram Man, Trap Jaw, and Triclops. Those don't fit literally, but they do kind of. They're the release of those figures that came out at that time. Right. And beyond that, it's kind of hit or miss. But I'll tell you this: I'll take everything I can get.
Oh, that was what I needed to hear. Because you might, I'm probably getting that Cobra Con thing here in Monday, and since I'm going to be sticking them in the mail to you anyways, I was just trying to see what other goodies I might or may not pack into that.
It sounds good to me. It sounds good to me. And now I've got to find you a Christmas present. You're going to get something from me. No, I don't have to do it. No, I don't have to do it.
That was exactly.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell a Bill story here. When I first became a member of a motorcycle club, I had gone to a red and gold party. I'm not going to go too deeply into this, but I went to a red and gold party, and they're a preeminent motorcycle club here in the state of Mississippi and also Texas. And one of the members was there with me, and I was walking with him, and their president from Jackson rode up on his motorcycle, and I turned to this member of the red and gold, and I said, "Oh, I guess I have to go up and shake his hand." And this member of the motorcycle club turned upon me, and he goes, "No, you don't have to do a GD thing. Don't do anything that you don't want to do. If you don't want to go up and shake that man's hand, don't do it. But if you want to, and then you should go up there and meet that man and shake his hand." And that jarred something in my head. No, I don't have to do the right thing. I should want to do the right thing.
Yeah, it's a great lesson for us all. You know, you make a good point with that. You know, like, yeah, it's amazing when things like that happen in your life that correct your train of thought, you know, into the right way.
Yeah, and it's a good thing to think about in our lives as well. And we're playing feeding the ducks. That's a good place to end today, everyone. I hope y'all enjoyed today's show. Stay tuned after New Year's when I come back from hiatus. We'll probably pick up where we left off at some point or another and continue these discussions here on Weird Fantastic Toy Adventures. Guys, if y'all stick around a minute after we get done, we'll have our wind down chat privately. And everyone watching today, I just want you guys to remember that together we shall triumph, and we'll see you all next time. Special thanks to these supporters on Patreon. Without your help, these adventures would not be possible. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's adventure, please hit like and subscribe and share the video.